Welcome into today's video, and if you're noticing that I'm posting a little bit later, let me explain what's going on really quick. So there is another hurricane hitting Florida, and this time it's going to be even larger than the last one. And I live in Central Florida, so we've been preparing for this hurricane, so that's why I've been having to update a little bit later. Hurricane Milton is now pushing a Category 5, and it's definitely going to be hitting pretty hard, even through Central Florida. So the only thing I ask is that you guys like the video and hopefully we make through it safe and everybody's safe and sound. But getting into today's market activity, really interesting day. If you guys have been following the channel, you would have been prepared for today's action. We've been taking profits and saying that as we get into October, it's going to get a little bit more volatile. We're in a correction phase, and I'm going to break that down and show you on the charts exactly what I'm talking about. Now, on this channel, we do work on fundamental analysis, and we're going to talk about some individual names that I'm finding interesting. So make sure you like and subscribe if you like that type of analysis. So let's get into what is happening today. Now, in my last video, I did say the VIX was going to be getting ready to party here, up 17, nearly 18% on the day, which then brought the Russell down nearly 1 percentage point, the NASDAQ 1.18%, the S&P 500 down nearly 1%, and the Dow Jones down nearly 1% as well. So just to review the charts very quick here, we had an uptrend formulated in this market that was very strong, that recently broke down, and we haven't been able to regain that uptrend. And this has been a pretty substantial line of support and resistance. Now it's a point of resistance, and the charts starting to show signs of weakening and breaking down. And this is kind of what I was pointing out last week. Not only did we understand that that was taking place, but if you guys can see down here, we have money flows that shows that it looks like by the end of October into November, it's going to be a bumpy ride. And the weakness of the market let us know that we could actually see a bumpier ride sooner than later. And so hence why I was kind of given the warning that, hey, it looks like we're hitting a top, not only from valuations, but from the charts as well. So the first signal was that breakdown that I showed you on the chart, but the second signal was this divergence that was taking place. The McClellan oscillator has been pointing down for multiple weeks as the market has been making newer highs. We call that a bearish divergence. So we can see here that the market was going up, but that McClellan oscillator was actually going the opposite direction, signaling that, hey, we might be in a topping process, or we might have a pullback, that we could see some volatility towards the middle and end of October into November. So we had the breakdown on the chart. The McClellan oscillator was telling us that, hey, pay attention. And then the final signal was this crossover on the MACD that kind of let us know that there could be a breakdown coming or a correction. Now, at this point in time, guys, to me, it's a correction probably between 5 to 7%. It starts breaking below substantial supports. Then at that point in time, we might be looking at this as a crash. As of right now, to me, it only looks like a correction, and we might be able to look into adding into this correction for another end of year type of rally. Many things can kind of derail this market in the short term. And when we look at that lining up, everything did seem like not only was the market expensive, but some things could actually derail this market at this point in time. Now, with all that being said, we don't know if it's going to be a crash, a correction, if we're going to go into a recession or not. If anybody that's been subscribed to the channel and following pretty frequently here, you guys know that I think the end of 2025 is going to bring some interesting opportunities and possible recession, and we'll start feeling that recession, and we'll start seeing the signals possibly by the summertime of 2025. Of course, this is just my opinion, but the only thing we really can control is valuations and opportunities that are given to us, right? So when we're looking at individual stocks, one of the top names that I have on here that I felt like not only offered a nice yield in the form of a dividend, but I felt like was fairly valued was actually Pfizer. So we're going to talk a little bit about Pfizer, and I also want to touch on Mosaic. Okay, multiple reasons why Mosaic is selling off, and it's definitely getting interesting at these levels. So when we think about Pfizer, this is a turnaround story. You guys can see here around $27.50 is an ideal stock price. I believe anything under $27 was a terrific opportunity for a long-term investor to be looking at Pfizer 5-10 years out, as this is going to be a player in oncology and cancer remedies from everything that we can see. The biggest problem with Pfizer right now is they had that huge spike of COVID revenue, and now the pipeline is very questionable. That's why we've seen the stock price basically go from $50 a share down as low as $25 a share, getting cut in half. But if we look at what happened with Pfizer today, it's pretty much a bright spot with this market. The market volatility was pretty bad. It's been selling off most of the day, and Pfizer was holding in there pretty strong, had an initial spike of over 3%, but settled in the day around 2%. We had an active investor of Starboard acquire $1 billion of Pfizer. So we're seeing active investors now start circling this company, seeing it as a pretty depressed valuation. And so that's why we saw Pfizer spike early on in in the morning. Starboard reportedly reached out to the CEO and looking to assist improving the company's performance. Not sure what kind of value they're going to add here, because when we look at what's been taking place with Pfizer, it's been acquisition after acquisition. The CEO came out and said at this point in time, they're done with the acquisitions. They really want to focus on what's in their pipeline. So I'm not sure what Starboard's going to unlock in value as far as Pfizer goes, but I don't think it's going to hurt. Once again, this is a long-term turnaround play. This is not a 1 to 2 year story, unfortunately, but I think the valuation's so compelling, and I think there's so much opportunity ahead that the risk versus reward at these levels makes sense, especially with that 6% dividend yield. So another name I really want to circle around here, because it is down nearly 4.5% on the day, and I want to explain why this company has sold off so much. As I stated before, there is a hurricane hitting the state of Florida. It's aimed right on to Tampa. And take a look where this company is based out of. Kennedy Boulevard in Tampa, Florida. Okay, so we already know the first hurricane that has come through Florida in the recent days has set back Mosaic's forecast. And now we have another hurricane coming through aimed directly for Tampa. This is definitely a burden for Mosaic, as well as this is going to damper even more on their earnings and everything else. And if you guys were on the live stream the other night, I did say this is a very interesting company, very depressed valuations, but I would wait for earnings, because not only is the China slowdown impacting them, but the recent hurricane activity is being a big hamper on their earnings as well. So this is one you want to sit back on, maybe wait for them to report earnings, kind of figure out if it's going to form a bottom anytime soon, putting in lower lows and lower highs, which is, kind of hard to see. It's that falling knife syndrome that we've talked about before on the channel. Can't make this stuff up, ladies and gentlemen. Take a look at where my ideal price target is, $24.33. Now that doesn't mean it can't go below that, but we are knocking on the door of really, I think, really decent valuation here. Hopefully nothing massive happens here with the hurricanes and nothing is damaged for the company. Both Schwab and Morningstar believe Mosaic can be an outperformer. And when we look at where Morningstar has their price target, they believe that this could be closer to a $40 stock. And they did this analysis when the stock was over $26 a share. As I showed you guys just a minute ago, it's trading right around $24 and change. So once again, just want to highlight what I'm personally seeing taking place. Now, we did see the 10-year spike, and to me, that's a signal that we could see higher inflation. A lot of the times when we saw that initial jobs reaction, the market did spike on that. And I said, I think the knee-jerk reaction is a spike, but we could see a sell-off because we're heading into a corrective phase. But also that 10-year yield could be telling us that inflation might actually be a lot stickier than anticipated. So just some things to keep an eye on. We want to pay attention to that 10-year treasury. We want to pay attention to the market conditions. We want to pay attention. We could see a pullback in the VIX, which means that we might see a little bit of a relief rally tomorrow. So as always, guys, really appreciate your time. I do think it's going to stay choppy until about end of October to about the end of October to the beginning of November. So keep that in your time frame here. Nothing wrong with over the next month, just building some cash, watching the volatility kind of work itself out, figuring out some of these names that maybe have been selling off that could be finding a bottom or hitting some fair market value territory for you personally. But as always, guys, really appreciate your time. Sorry about the late uploads. Once again, I'm preparing for the hurricane, and we will see you guys in the next one.